Who believes that they are Gen Z? Who's a Generation Zer in here? There we go. Well, that's where the money is. That's, oh yes, that's where the future of work is, apparently. Also known as iGeneration, Zoomers, Post-Millennials, or Homelanders. Did you know you were a Homelander? There we go. Anyway, our next sessions, our final part of the day here on the Banco Sabadell stage is all about understanding these people on the front row, all about understanding Generation Z and why they are so desirable for many of the brands, many of the companies, maybe many of the nurturing companies out here. Apparently, you are purpose-driven consumers. Yeah? Yeah. Reshaping the future of work. But for many other people, you remain a mystery. So that's what we're going to be peeling away over the next hour and a half or so. So our first session is a fireside chat where the title of this is No Filter, Building Brands That Gen Z Care About. This is a fireside chat. Our moderator for this is journalist at El Periódico, Paola Clemente, and our interviewee for this session. Please give me a big, warm Tuesday afternoon, 4 years from now, welcome for co-founder and creative director at the Nude Project, it's Bruno Casanovas. There we go. Hola, hola.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here with us. I will use only 1 minute to introduce myself for you to know why I'm here. I'm Paula Clemente. I'm a journalist. I've been a journalist for 10 years now. That means 10 years writing about 4 years from now because I write about startups, entrepreneurships, and
She's great.
these topics.
She's been here for 10 years.
I'm currently working on El Periódico de Cataluña. It's a general newspaper very well known in the city. And writing that about the startups, entrepreneurship, digital economy, and also about retail industry. So I have the feeling that Nude Project gathered the best of my both worlds. We've talked before. I'm so glad to be here for the first time on the stage. I think that is your first time also in 4 years from now. So maybe to warm up, we're going to start talking about Nude Project. Maybe there's someone on the audience who doesn't know the brand. So the floor is yours. Explain to them.
Amazing, amazing. Can you hear me? You can hear me well, yeah, because it's a bit noisy. The ones in the back, can you raise your hands if you can hear me? Yeah, amazing. Thank you, thank you.
I hear you.
Nude Project is a clothing brand. We started 6 years now, which makes me feel old when I say it because that means I'm getting older. And we started out of our dorm room, studying.
Yeah.
I always, just to put it this way, I always kind of had a fear when people ask me now, why do you think the brand started or why did you come to this point? My biggest fear was always being normal in some sense. You know, I think there's, when you're a young guy and you're not the tallest, you're not the most handsome, you're not the funniest, you're not the most smart, I think an insecurity starts to build up on you of like, what am I gonna do? Because everyone else seems to have it so figured out. Everyone either wants to be an athlete or an astronaut or an entrepreneur, and I had no idea what I really wanted to be. Yeah. So when I met Alex, which is my business partner, and he's the CEO now, I think what joined us most was we both had a big fear of being average, and we created a project that allowed us to do all the things we loved.
For me, the big question actually, and being here in the 4 years from now is that makes more sense, is like, how did you manage to go from selling t-shirts among friends in college or friends of friends to build a brand that last time we talked was selling like 30 million euros a year? So how did you manage that? And how, I mean, I'm asking technically, because we heard like, yeah, and things start going fast, we start growing, yeah, but how? Where did the money come from? Where did you find the first clients who you didn't know? You know what I mean?
Okay.
There's a technique.
Let's make it. Let's bring it down to earth. Where's the first money? We say this a lot, and I'm almost a little tired. But the first money we got was me and Alex's money. We both had 300 euros saved up. We were 18 at the time, and we put it up. With those 600 euros in total, we could do a production, I think, of up to 15 T-shirts. We did 15 T-shirts, and when I say 15 T-shirts, so everyone here, I see there's like a lot of students, I'm guessing, so that everyone can feel this. We went to a local taller, no? A local place
shop,
where they do printings. We brought Fruit of the Loom hoodies, which are like the stock hoodies you can buy online. We bought 15, printed them. We did our own designs on Photoshop. And then we said in the beginning we had 4 markets. It was my university, my student dorm, Alex's university, and his student room. And it was funny because I was in Barcelona and he was in Madrid. And that was literally our first clients. I think my ex-girlfriend at the time was literally the first client. I remember we put up the website online. We did like this whole video campaign, all the shooting. And I don't know if you guys have Shopify, but in Shopify you can see every time you get an order and it goes ding ding. It makes like the sound effect of the money. And then we saw like 1 minute after the drop, we got our first order. I went to look which order it was, and I'm like, oh, let's see the name of the first client. Let's see who it was. Maybe he's in Poland or in Africa, God knows. And it was the name of my girlfriend. I was like, fuck, this doesn't count. I don't know if this counts.
Yeah.
But that was it. That was us in the beginning. It was friends of friends.
Yeah, but almost everyone, and don't get me wrong, but almost everyone can go and do that. I mean, why Nude Project was different? Or which is your feeling in that field?
Why were we different? I think there's a certain part of timing and being ready for things. No, I'm not a big believer in luck, but I think there's definitely some things of luck in the world where you can't control. And I think me and Alex had a big tendency of knowing what worked on social media and what the people wanted because we were the people. It's not like we did an analysis or a market analysis of like, oh, what do the young people nowadays want to know?
Yeah.
I was 18, I was the kid. The brand I made was tailor-made for myself.
Yeah.
I didn't find the clothes I wanted to wear. I didn't see the social media management I'd love to see. I didn't see a business I could resonate and relate to. So I think people just gravitated to us being genuine.
Yeah. So I have the same feeling that the social media strategy and the brand itself is a key point in this story. So was something pursued? Was like prepared or random virality? Let me say.
I think it would sound so much more interesting if I said, yeah, we were in the lab for like 6 months, we prepared everything was tailor-made. But the truth was that in the beginning, we just wanted to do something that we liked. And I think like anyone in the world, I'm sure, we spent, I think 3/4 of our life working. And I think if you spend those 3/4 of your life doing something miserable that you don't like, you're gonna have a more miserable life. And I wanted to have a life that I loved, that I enjoyed, even though it has bad days, that I wake up every day with excitement. And I think that was the purpose in the beginning. Let's do something that we feel is fun. When there's a quote about Naval, he's a philosopher I love, but he says, when work turns to play, that's when you're in a beautiful spot.
Yeah. There's for what you're saying and what I know the brand, being a Gen Z is key also. So do you think there's a way to construct this engagement, or is like all fluently and...
I think our generation is smarter than what corporate or people can think. I think we're so used to seeing so much stuff on social media, so many people, so many influencers, so many TikToks, so many YouTube videos, so many podcasts, that we're already very exquisite with what we want to see. So when you start to see a company that is trying to do a Gen Z marketing strategy, but they're a bunch of old people in a boardroom trying to get to connect with the Gen Z, it just feels disingenuine. And when it feels disingenuine, I feel like, and I don't want to speak for a generation because who the fuck am I, but I feel like we disconnect.
Yeah, but that leaves me no choice than ask what I ask you always, that is that if you are growing up, don't you have a fear that disconnect to the new generation?
Yeah, I do. Of course, I do. I'm not gonna be young forever. I'm already actually. I wear hats now because I'll probably go bald soon. But I think hopefully, if I'm smart enough, once I start to disconnect with this generation, and once I feel like my target audience can't connect with what I like anymore, hopefully I'm smart enough to come to one of these conferences and find the next young person that I can trust and that I know whatever he likes is the thing we should do. And I want to build a team around myself that I can trust, that are younger, cooler, more smart, more interesting than me, and hopefully they can guide us the next way through.
And you're constructing like a really serious company, big company with solid funding, right? So I think that helps in this future, this vision of becoming big.
Completely. I think the team, and that's something I could not reiterate more, like the team you build yourself around, especially as a younger person. I didn't even manage to finish university because I didn't have time, because I started working as soon as I started university. So my resources as far as information and as far as studying are very basic. So I think I'm very lucky to say that we are 170 people in total now, and that I've surrounded myself by people that know way much more than me, and that are experts in their own discipline.
Yeah. You've launched recently, before talking about the nude universe, like podcasts and so on, you've launched recently like feminine clothes, right? You've been known for being unisex brand. Is something changing inside nude in the clothes sector?
Is something changing? No, honestly, it's always been there. I think Nude Project as a DNA has a very feminine attitude, because I don't think usually like clothing brands in the streetwear realm were more associated to men, because streetwear is kind of always like more street, more dark, more masculine in some sort. And I think our brand from the very beginning, the DNA has been very, very, very feminine, because I feel like I'm a sweet guy. I'm not a gangster. I'm not tough. I'm a sweet person, and I relate more to women than I do to men. Sincerely, okay. I think women rule the world, and that is the future. So,
I feel too.
So I think as far as the clothes we made, we just wanted the nude woman that was already buying from us, because even when we did only unisex, we were already selling to 40% women. We wanted that nude woman to feel represented in every moment of the year. And even though wearing hoodies and oversized pants is cool for a woman, and there's some days that they want to dress like that, there's also some days, especially in summer, where you want to look cuter, you want to wear something that's more fitted to the body, you've been going to the gym for 6 months straight, and you want to feel good. You know, so we just wanted to make clothes that made our team feel good, that made the woman that we were surrounding ourselves feel good, and that hopefully can reach a larger audience if we do things right.
Yeah. And you choose Victoria Federica and Belén Esteban to advertise that. It's a strange mix, let me say.
Yeah. To people that are not Spanish, they might not understand, but basically we got, how do I describe this? We got Victoria Federica, she's the nieta.
Yeah.
She's the nieta,
granddaughter.
The granddaughter of the king of Spain. And then we got Belén Esteban, who is Belén Esteban?
Show woman.
Yeah.
And then the media and the soap, like.
She's like a very powerful, strong, funny woman. And we kind of got polar opposites of women, because we wanted to show that the woman collection we were doing was more about an attitude than about an age or a style. So we kind of did this whole campaign with these two different women that you would have never imagined in the same room. And the news and stuff went a bit crazy.
Yeah, and it works.
It worked?
Do you think, have the feeling that people engage in that? Because also you were working with Ronaldinho. It's a very strange mix of celebrities.
Yeah, I think we just do. I started the talk saying I do things that are genuine to me. You know, we've never had a huge business plan or a crazy roadmap. We just did, from the beginning, I think the only thing I can say we've done to the dot is try to do everything so it feels genuine to us, so it feels like authentic. And I think if I had to imagine a football player the Nude Project would be, it'd be Ronaldinho. Because when he got on a soccer pitch, he'd be fun, he'd be power, he'd be passion, he'd be enjoyment. It's not all about technique or all about what he did. It was about how he did it. So even though it is weird, maybe you say, why Ronaldinho Nude Project? For me, it made perfect sense because if I had to envision Nude Project in a soccer field, it'd be him.
So how do you reach these people? I remember a story of one of your workers like pursuing, I don't know, a singer, Raúl Alejandro. Yeah,
yes,
that's
yes.
a really fine story and explains the, has a lecture of entrepreneurship, like go for it, right?
Yes. I think you have to have the go for it attitude, and then there's things that happen in a magical way that is kind of, no? Things just get attracted, and I'm lucky enough my assistant is here, she's in the talk, and she's right there. And she was connected to Ronaldinho in some sort of form. And I think the first week she started working for us, she was like, Bruno, what would you think about doing a collaboration with Ronaldinho? I'm like, what the fuck, are you crazy? Like, what do you mean with that thing? I'd
For
think
sure.
everything. I'd do anything I have to do to get it. And it just kind of made sense, and it fixed the way. And I think when you see the campaign, you feel how organic it was creating it and how organic it felt when it was released to the world.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about the podcast, because I think that's really huge what you've done. From my perspective, that for example, the CEO and co-founder of Globo goes to your podcast on your first stop to explain himself and explain what's going on Globo, rather than coming to a traditional media. No hard feelings. It's so huge. It's signs of a change, right?
Yeah.
Also, same question. Do you think that it's key on your business? The podcast is a parallel universe. How do you connect everything?
Look, I think the podcast is a cultural form. When we started, and I'm sorry, I might be a bit intense, but we once again wanted to do something that felt genuine to us. And I love podcasts. Like everything I've learned is from podcasts. Like I didn't finish my studies. I didn't go to no MBA or no big college. So most of the things I've learned have been through humans and through podcasts. And the cool thing about a podcast is you can literally hear a conversation of someone you would never have access to. Like for example, today I saw, random story, but I'll tell you how it applies to me. I saw Versace got sold to Prada for 1.5 billion, and I was like, what? This is crazy. And the first thing I was like, who made Versace? And then I realized it was Ginatelli Versace. I might have fucked it up, so I'm sorry. Don't keep that in mind. But then I was like, this woman is definitely amazing. She's created this business that is huge. She's created a brand that has gone beyond business. I'd love to hear her and see what she has to say. So I just went on YouTube and I searched Ginatelli Versace podcast. And then I had an hour-long interview of this woman speaking about her life and how she founded the brand.
Yeah.
That is mind-blowing. Like, people complain a lot about the day and age we're in, how the world is. We're in the fucking best moment in time by far. I think the information is so accessible. People are more reachable than ever. And the power that who am no one, being able to listen to an hour-long conversation of this woman that's built an empire for free, to me is mind-blowing. So when we started the podcast, it was all about that. It's like, if we could document the journey we have, and at the same time, share our vision, share the things we're learning, share the things we're doing bad, the things we're fucking up with, the things that we don't know, but share all that with the people that maybe want to know more about it, it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
That was it.
Do you think that Nude project would be the same by now without the podcast? I mean, I see it's like in the center of your culture.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be hard to say because I literally wouldn't know, but I think the podcast has done a very beautiful thing of joining many things we like together. Mm-hmm. So the podcast we'll talk to creatives, we'll talk to business people, we'll talk to doctors, to philosophers, and I think it's very beautiful that the podcast is a very good facade of all the realm and the universe of Nude Project, because it shows you there's not this one thing. It's an attitude brand. It's a philosophy. It's a way of seeing life.
Yeah, I will ask you also. It's been like failed projects because we see a lot of success in the news story. And how do you, if you want to explain something perfect, something perfect, if you don't know, maybe the how you manage like something was not the way you expected to be.
Look, failures, I think, all the time. And I don't want to sound like the typical entrepreneur of talking about hardship and failure, but it's the truth. Any cliche is
It's
true.
important to,
Yeah, no,
explain it.
I think if something's a cliche is for a reason.
Because nowadays, sorry, like entrepreneurship is like so bright, and you see
Yeah.
like really success story, but there's a hard part, people suffering a lot, anxious, like mental health issue.
Look, it was actually very funny. I found, I was in the airport the other day, and this girl came up to me and she said, when she looked at me, she stopped and she's like, "Well, I need to talk to you. I love the podcast. I love what you guys are doing." And it was just like a very beautiful moment where this girl, she was like a real, yeah, she was a real fan. It was real. It was genuine. And then she asked me one question that kind of threw me off, where she was like, "But guys, it always seems when you guys are doing things or when you guys are doing a podcast that everything's amazing.
Yeah.
Everything you guys are doing is great. Everything works well.
And you're so nice and happy.
And she says, and meanwhile, I have my own business and I have 10 people that are working as my staff and it's always problems. Every day is fucking hard. And one day is more depressing than the other." And I was like, I started laughing because I'm like, oh, fuck, if we portray that everything's amazing, we're doing something wrong, you know? We're doing something wrong. And if I had to say a failure, I don't know if it's a failure, but firing a person is a failure to me. And fortunately, I've had to fire many people, but that's a failure. Anytime I've ever have to hire someone and that person has not worked out in my company, I've had a bad judgment. And for me, that's a failure. And I think my biggest failures are having to fire people because it's the hardest thing in the world because it's like, the equivalent to a death in the personal world is sad,
the feeling
sad,
that
sad.
Who am I to say someone?
It is depressing and it's very hard. And at the same time, it's the most important thing. But for me, that's biggest failures.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about entrepreneurship. You've built all that without financing, without venture capital, right? It's something that you recommend, you prefer to go alone?
The question I would always ask anyone is when a kid comes up to me and he's like, I'm about to start my own brand. I've just talked to a bank or to an investor, and I'm going to do my first round. It's going to be 300,000 euros. And I'm like, the first thing I ask him is, why do you need money?
Yeah.
That's first off, okay? Don't get it wrong. It's not to judge. It's just, I think, in tech, or maybe in the food industry, or there's businesses that do need a big capital to start off, and that it's impossible with. So I'm not going to talk about those businesses because I have no idea about.
Yeah.
The CEO of Global was yesterday here. He can talk to you about financing. But we bootstrapped it all because I think in a business like fashion, it's circular, which means that you sell and you get money. And usually the startup money you need, unless you're doing these crazy productions, is not much because we literally started with 15 hoodies and sold them. We sold 15 hoodies, we could buy 30 more, we sold the 30, and that was like a snowball effect. So I would advise to anyone that is starting a business that doesn't need a huge startup capital to do it yourself, because when you do it yourself, I feel like it makes you smarter. Because when you don't have money, you're smarter. No? Some entrepreneur told me a phrase that I love that is, money makes you dumb.
Yeah.
Because when you get €1 million of financing, you think you're fucking rich, you still haven't invoiced €0 to your business, and you're already getting LinkedIn posts that are saying, oh my God, congrats, 1 million in finance rounding. And that's not real money. Because, that's...
With the media help into that.
Yeah, and the media, and there's the press article about what X company did a 15 million financing. And I think that's okay, but I think what we should really nurture and celebrate is revenue, no? It's a good margin. It's a EBITDA. You know, I think those are the numbers we should be looking at. So when anyone asks me, do I need financing? Before getting financing, I'm not saying that it's not necessary, it is in many. but think if you can do it by your own. And the more you can do it by your own, the longer you can do it by your own, I think the better off you'll be and the better financing you'll probably get if you need it.
But in my case, it's like there's some companies that doesn't share these numbers.
Yeah.
So it's so easy when you find like really smart people with a lot of money investing their money on a company.
Yeah.
You as a journalist see, okay,
Yeah.
that is huge. You know, it's kind of a item that helps you see what is going on.
I can
you know?
imagine. I can imagine.
I would like to use like some minutes to talk about your relation with Alex,
Okay.
because you're like from the outside, you seem like really different persons, right? So,
Yeah.
and I think that with your partner, the relation has to be really good. How about that? Because you live together.
Yeah. For people that don't know, Alex is my business partner, is my 50%. He's the person I probably have closest to me in my life. I see him. I don't have a girlfriend, but if I had a girlfriend, I'd see him more than my girlfriend for sure. And right now, he's one of the most important relationships I have in my life. No, the most important probably, because if him and I are not connected, this business doesn't work, and this business is my life. So one of the best advice I've ever gotten was actually from Isaac Andig, may he rest in peace. And he kind of told us that we had to nurture our relationship like if it was our life, and that we had to tell anyone that was around us that our relationship was taboo and that was something to not be talked about, because even our familiar people, our girlfriends, our wives in the future, they can't get in between the relationship we have because it's so sacred.
Yeah.
So I treat it like that. I nurture it. I try to listen to him. There's days where he pisses me off probably, but there's days I piss him off too.
Yeah.
And
Confidence makes easier to manage the situations, right?
Yeah, but I think I love the power of strong relationships, and I think the more time you spend with a person, the stronger the relationship gets. So I think we've created such a strong bond that I knock on wood that I hope it stays like that, because I think it's part of the key. If someone had to tell me what is the key component Nude Project had, it's definitely Alex.
Yeah.
To me, and I'm hoping I'm the same to him.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe we can end by saying the audience like some advices or key things that help you really to build a company like that. I assume that there's a lot of entrepreneurs on the audience, so things that you would like to know when you started.
Things that I would like to know when I started. Many. But definitely start. If you're thinking of starting, start tomorrow. And when I say that, is I think the faster you start, the faster you're going to be able to test things, and the faster you test, the faster you're going to get smarter and you're going to learn. I love the podcast from the CEO on Netflix on the Diary of a CEO. Much recommended to anyone here. And he kind of just talks about how key it is in a startup to test fast and test quickly. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, with everything I was saying about raising capital or about needing a lot of money for this crazy idea, of this insane idea, the CEO of Netflix, he was a big fan of testing fast with little money. The faster you could test with less investment, the better, because the faster you would get information from the market, and the faster you would be able to start another business or change things and tweak things in that business. So I think test fast. Let's say he used an example that I loved. He basically talked about a woman that told him that she was about to do a round for 1 million euros for this company, that the idea was to share clothes and sell secondhand clothes for another one so they could interchange them, you know? So she was like, no, but I'm gonna need a lot of money for the program and the software, blah, 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 blah. And he said, okay, no, I'm gonna tell you how to test it, investing €0. And he's like, okay, you're in a dorm room, you live in a dorm room, amazing. What you're gonna do is you're gonna put A4 paper that says, if you're interested in trading clothes, knock on this door and I'll answer. Put that on your door, see if anyone knocks. If someone knocks, hey, maybe the business is interesting, you can try to interchange and see if it works. If no one knocks, maybe you should try a different business or a different idea, or you should try to tweak it. And I think that would be my biggest preach. If I had to preach something, that would be it, because most of the conversations I get from young people that talk to me about starting their own business is always, okay, yes, I'm gonna start, but after I do this, or after I do this study, or after I do the exams, or after I get this job, after I get this money, it's always like You know, it's like the snooze button when the alarm hits in the morning. It's, okay, I could wake up right now, or I could wake up 5 minutes later that I'm going to feel like I've slept 12 hours more, no?
Yeah.
I think the snooze button, an entrepreneur have to have control of the snooze button, and you have to do hard things to get accomplishments.
Yeah.
So if I could tell the people to test fast, and whatever idea, how crazy it is, the faster you get to test it, the faster you're going to be able to see if the market actually cares or if no one really does.
Yeah. 1 minute to explain something, it's going to happen in Nude.
Right now, what's going to happen in Nude right now? I don't know, we just released a collaboration with Ronaldinho, which is fucking exciting. You guys know who he is, know he plays football. Like, so I'm not even going to talk. Okay, yes, something about the future. Sorry, my brain is bad.
Really fast that they are going to kill us.
This is making me nervous. We're about to open our first ever flagship in Amsterdam. So if you have any friends in Amsterdam, we're about to be opening the biggest store we've ever opened in a month's time. And then we're opening our first ever flagship, our second ever flagship. No, it actually comes beforehand. Our first ever flagship in Madrid too.
Okay.
So we're about to open in the biggest stores. It's going to be all about experience. I think it's going to shape the way retail is going. We want to do it different. We want to do it nude. And I think to this day, we've never had the ability to do it in a retail place like what we're going to do in these two cities.
Okay, thank you very much, Bruno.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Super stuff. Thank you, Paula. Thank you very much indeed, Bruno. So in this final part of the day here on the Banco Sabadell stage at 4 years from now, 2025, we are exploring the world of Gen Z, looking at trying to understand Gen Z, trying to understand how best to engage with Gen Z, because that is where a lot of the market is. That is the workforce of today and indeed of tomorrow. And in our next session now, we're going to be, I guess, combining the overarching theme of 4 years from now this year, which is AI, applying AI, how we can make best use of AI. And we are combining that with our conversation around Gen Z. What I should do very quickly, though, is just to remind you that around about this time tomorrow, right here on this stage, it is the 4 years from now awards. The 4 years from now awards, where our 5 finalists will be doing live pitching on stage here in front of our panel of investors, and there will be a €20,000 prize, and of course all of the accolades that come with winning the 4 years from now awards. Last year's winner was Kilimanjaro, a quantum computing startup based very locally to here. That's tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Anyway, moving on to our next conversation of the day here. And the big question is, how can we upskill Gen Z as fast as we can train AI? And I'm delighted to welcome to the stage here to chat us through this. It is EY's Global Vice Chair Markets, Hannah Jeska-Bax. Hannah Jeska.
Quan parlen anglès, sí, tots quan parlen així tal, no?
Amsterdam, so I'm going to go to the shop as soon as it opens. So great to be here. This is probably the coolest place. I've been in halls 1 to 6, so I'm very happy to be here. And I'm going to talk to you about Gen Z, and I'm very excited twofold. I'm a mother of 15, and so at home it's Gen X meets Gen Z, and so I can definitely relate to what this means from a home perspective. But also at EY, we have 400,000 people, and the average age that we have is between 28 and 30 out of that huge population. So it's a topic at home, and it's a topic in my day job. And so I'm just going to talk you through a few of the things, and again, some of the stats I'm sure you've seen before. But for the first time, we're going to have 5 different generations in the workforce. And so for me, and I think for many others, that's a huge topic to understand and to tackle. And you'll see the change, right? You see the change where we are in today versus how is this going to shift in 2033. And so huge piece there is going to be the Gen X and millennials and how that's going to actually start to change that workforce. 40% of the entrants are already coming through this, and clearly you know, we talk about generations, we probably have to go and split generations into even more pockets. Because even when you look at Gen Z, that spends a generation like my little girl at home who is about to graduate, versus people in their late 20s. So between a 15 and a 29-year-old and the pace of technology and the pace of change, it's going to be vastly different how they experience everything that they do. So that's going to be the first challenge that we have out there. For me, in my Gen X days, internet was the thing that changed our life. For the millennials, and there's probably a lot of you in the room there, it was social media. And for Gen Z, it's AI. Now, AI is vastly different than the launch of the internet. So I think that's going to be so pervasive in the change. How does everybody get ready for that? And I think the way I'd like to unpack this is twofold. I think there's a lot of focus on the technical side of the AI and the upskilling, and I'll come through some of the facts and the surveys that we've done. I actually personally think it's the transversal impact of AI and how to start thinking in a very, very different way, rather than actually on the technology side. And so marrying those two pieces is probably most important. We've done a large-scale study just recently together with Microsoft and Teach AI, and I'm just going to talk you through some of the things that came out of that study, because that's quite interesting. 5,000 people, over 16 countries. So let me just tell you a little bit of what came out of that survey. I was actually surprised. I would have expected more to end up at the bottom, right? Have 60% of that population actually using AI in very different extents. Only 15% are super users. So if this is everything that's going to change how we live and how we work, this generation needs to get upskilled quite rapidly, which is why we kind of started with that topic. But also the fact that only 24% is novice. So I think there's something that needs to still happen. The good news is they're extremely curious. They want to go and play. They want to use it more at their personal life rather than in some of the other aspects of life. But also some of them are really looking at it at the more macro stuff that's out there. And again, my daughter, when she does her homework, she does it with AI first, and then she kind of redoes it because she doesn't want her teacher to figure out she's been using AI. I'm fine because she needs to start to play with that. But it's interesting, most feel, and this is my biggest plea for passion, most feel that the educational sector is not embracing, nor is it ready. And maybe we can't blame the educational sector, but that is for me where the biggest overhaul needs to be. How do we embed this in everything you do at education? They do feel that on average, employers are much more open and susceptible to adopt AI, but that's not where they actually get it from. So let's look at the AI literacy. So they understand that the AI is there as a selected of the use. That's where they understand. They struggle, though, again, this is another big concern, they struggle with the prompts. And we all know, right? What is the most important thing is getting the prompts right. So they understand the task. How do we teach the prompt? Which is my easy way of saying, in the educational sector, I was taught to have a lot of knowledge. And because of having that knowledge, I was taught to be able to answer lots of questions. Now, that has to be in reverse, because they don't have to answer the questions. They have to be the ones asking the questions, and that's what they struggle with. And the other thing that they feel really uncomfortable with is, how do they find what's true versus what's fake? How do they understand what are some of the hallucinations, and how do they get that skill of validation, which I go back to, how do we start teaching some of these skills? And I think businesses overall should be much more curious in beginning to adapt this. How do you make this part of it? But how do we start to train it? And then, as I said, the evolution is where this gets a little bit, the technology shortfalls and how we go around that. So where do they learn? And again, maybe there is no surprise. Where do they learn? Over 50% learn from social. And I also think this is a very different starting point. Most of us started to learn the technology traits that we have as we were in the workforce. Gen Z, as they enter the workforce, they know all the technology, they know it from their social, they know it, but also all the AIs are already embedded. They know what some of the dangers are. So they've experienced it in personal life, and they're taking it with them into that workforce. And then the other piece, the news articles, but a lot of it's just trying and error. They just go out and begin to play with it. One of the things which is a little bit of a concern, again, I'm a has glass full, has empty, is how do we actually start to say what is the real knowledgeable pace? And I think the self-assessment of knowing what you know is probably not good enough. So we found a complete variety of people saying how comfortable they were and less comfortable. There's also a geographical dimension that's very different. Middle East, India, and Africa, they have a much higher level of confidence about what they can do and where they can employ it between, on the other spectrum, North America and Europe. However, when we tested this population of over 5,500 people, there wasn't a huge differential in what they actually knew. So this goes back to another personality trait. It's the confidence. If you have the confidence to use it, you have the confidence to do it, I think you can get much further. So how do we actually build up partly the confidence level? Because the more they know, the more they're going to explore, the more they're going to try. Very positive fact that came out of the survey is the more they tried, the more they saw AI as a power for good. Because we have this debate, right? Is it going to help us or is it going to be part of the doom and gloom? And so the more they worked with it, the more they tried it, the more they saw it as a force for good. So yes, very positive of what it can do and how it can change their life. But clearly, there is a huge level of apprehension. Is AI going to take my job? What is it going to mean for my future? What is it going to mean for the nature of my job? And I come back to my call out from the educational side. I think we over-index on the technology side of AI. We don't over-index sufficiently on the developmental, on the transversal side. And again, if I go back and bring it close to home, living with a 15-year-old. Have you ever seen a teenager talk on the phone? Has anyone seen a teenager talk on the phone? I talk on the phone. My daughter never talks on the phone. They type. They type and they chat, right? So I think part of the skills is how do you get that human relationship? And how do you come out from taking a look at my phone, thinking for a half hour or 4 hours, as clearly I've not read my messages, to come back with a really cool answer. And so I do want to go back to some of that social interactivity and accepting that AI is going to be there, and AI is going to be the knowledge base that they have. So it comes back for me in maybe not the soft skills, but I would like to call them the transversal skills. And then, as I said, I'm just going to read here from my 43% is a big number, is worried AI is going to take their jobs, replacing human learning and creativity, also 43%. I think the learning and creativity, especially the creativity, and 39% is worried about the false data that comes out of it without them having the right tools in their hands of how they can actually go and take that. So hopefully in the last 9-10 minutes, I've given you a little bit of a lay of the land, and I wanted to end with this final picture. I think it takes all dimensions in society to work together. I haven't touched on governments, but clearly governments have a huge part in setting the rules, setting the ethics, and setting what needs to happen. I think the educational system is very high on my agenda, and I worry it's too much at the end of the university curriculum, getting people into the workforce as well as the starters. I think it needs to go back into high school, and actually it needs to go back in primary school, because I do think the development of the brain is hugely different depending on what technologies we have and what are the social skills we teach. So that for me needs to come back. Gen Z itself, I mean, I think they live in the golden bubble. As I said, internet was a big thing. AI is much more pervasive from a technology perspective as well as the pace of change. So I do think for the Gen Zs in the room, you live on the wave that's just going to go further and further because you've started at the outset with it. And then at the end, as business, because that's where I live, don't assume. Make sure that you bring all the different generations in that workforce, those 5 generations together, because only together you're going to be able to solve this. So more to come, but for me, the glass is very helpful, and I think it's a huge opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Hannah Jeske. I am a proud Gen Xer. I also have a 15-year-old daughter. And yeah, very rare that they speak on the phone, but they do talk like this. It's like the phone doesn't quite have an earpiece and they're walking around. They've got it on speakerphone. Very, very strange. I also have a younger daughter, Generation Alpha. She's 12, so I think that makes her a Generation Alpha, I think. Not much difference yet, but of course, these conversations will continue. Fascinating insights from Hannah Jeske-Bax from EY there. And our fascinating insights continue with our next conversation right now. I mentioned earlier on about the different names that Gen Z have been referred to, including Zoomers. So our next session is tantalizingly titled From Boomers to Zoomers, Cracking the Code of Growing Teens. Join me in welcoming to the stage for this fireside chat our moderator, who is Helena Guardans, President Spain for Concentrix, and friend of 4 years from now, CEO and co-founder of Factorial, Jordi Romero.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Hello, Jordi.
Hello, Elena.
You're supposed to talk about Gen Z, but before I would start just with a question like, do you think that there is really an impact when we talk about leadership, management, on how we deal or we treat with people from different generations?
Yes, so it's so the context here is leadership. We're going to try to stick to leadership. And the question, the prompt that these people gave us was from boomers to zoomers and understanding how to lead specifically the newer generations. And you and I started talking, and we immediately went to the other 25 dimensions outside of generation, but trying to stick to the generation for a second. I think there are clear signs. For example, at Factorial, the company I started and that you invested in very early on, we have a lot of people that are in their early 20s to late 20s. And then we've got people that are over 30, 40, 50, 60, but the vast majority are between 20 and 30. And it makes one feel old because there are clearly some differences in what people care about, in the drivers to commit to a project for the long term, and in the type of rewards that are expected. So I think what I've seen at home from my parents and what I thought were the railways of a successful life and career, then the opinion that I formed myself as I started growing into an adult and learning a little bit about the world, and what I see now in most of my team definitely changed. I think there is a lot more social awareness and look for independence and freedom from a lot of people in our team, and that generates sometimes a little bit of a difference with people in the mid-30s to early 40s, which is the other big.
But don't you think that also these people, that they are so old, comparing, that all of them have been impacted by the pandemic? So in the sense that I think that many of the things that about the Gen Z, about that caring about the world, caring about many more things and not only salary, caring about policies and all these things that they do care, I think I have the impression that maybe other generations that maybe weren't so strong on these ideas or beliefs, they have also been impacted by the pandemic and they have changed their mind.
There was definitely like a Zoomification of everybody, or of many people.
Yeah.
Probably mostly people that are currently working. So people from the early 20s to the late 60s that were working at the time of the pandemic in the 2020 and 21 era changed their context so much. Were isolated for maybe too long of a period. And started challenging a lot of their preconceptions that were unthinkable before the pandemic. I think definitely I agree with you that the trend that we all imagine when we think about the Zoomer generation was spread a little bit across different generations as well. So there was like a concentration of this change in mindset.
Because do you find, for example, when you are hiring or interviewing people, that this generation are asking questions that other people didn't ask? Like when they are considering your job offer to start, that they are asking different things?
For sure. A lot of people ask about the company values and the mission of the business, which sounds obvious to me because obviously I'm a founder, so I care a lot about the reason we exist and the way in which we want to operate. But most people just accept it, no? And they feel something they like about the business and they end up adapting to it. And it's true that the newer generation asks earlier in the process about this type of things and want to understand things outside of the core business mission of the company and what are some of the indirect missions of the company. So it is important for somebody who's recruiting people across generations to make sure that you emphasize this and you zoom out a little bit more when projecting the goal of the company and not just staying to the business, but going a little bit wider as well.
So do we need to think about that we need to change the way of leading, the way of leadership to retain these people, to keep them motivated and engaged in the company?
So I think, and I'd love to hear your take as well, because you have a way more experience than I do, but I think yes, in some maybe more superficial and in ways in which we communicate with people, yes, we need to adapt. But also one of the things that I realized with time is that in the essence, we're all very similar. So there are some very deep cravings that people have. They're different for different humans, independent of the age, the role in the company, the type of business, the nationality, the socio-economic environment. So there are a lot of more differences there. But at the end of the day, understanding the human drivers and human psychology is common across generations, and this is very important. The way in which we communicate across generations needs to adapt, and we need to be understood. I always think that is the responsibility of the emitter to make sure that the receiver gets the message. So we do need to adapt a little bit the message. But I'm honestly more focused on the different dimensions in which leadership changes and in which employees and team members need to be led and motivated.
Okay, because, for example, now when we think about leadership, the ways of, for example, when people have a great idea and they start with a new business, okay? Here we have many of them. And I think that they invest a lot in having, and before I heard someone here saying how important it was to have a great CFO, a great CTO, but it was not so important to have someone in human resources. And sometimes I think that when there are these people, that these entrepreneurs, that they have a great idea, they think that all the other people around them, they are going to follow without giving more reasons to motivate them or to retain them. And I don't know, maybe you can talk about the experience on how to work with that.
So the assumption of most founders is everybody else is going to care about your business idea as you do. Spoiler, they don't. They don't care at all to begin with. And it's 100% the founder's job, or whoever is the leader of a different part of a company, to create this excitement and this motivation. The first step is by selecting a group of people that care. That's one of the things in business, as you know very well. Almost all the problems start the day you recruit somebody, and almost all the solutions are the day that you recruit somebody. So recruiting, hiring the right pool of talent, making sure that you find people that can get interested in your business idea is absolutely essential. And then communicating from the most aspirational, we're changing the world in the future, one day when we achieve many things in between. But what we do matters is very important, all the way to what we're doing right now. This very second matters a lot. It matters to the world, it matters to our city, it matters to our customers, it matters to your colleagues, it matters to your payslip, to your bonus at the end of the year, to the promotion in the coming year. So aligning all of this to making sure that people end up caring as much as you do, if not more, is super important. And yes, the role of HR or the role of people leadership can help a lot. It's true that it's a very tricky role. Finding great people leaders is super tricky.
But I think the idea, when we have a great idea to create a business, we want to change the world, we want to make the world better. But at the end, we want also the business to grow. And sometimes we forget about that. And we keep doing the same things as if we were doing when we had only 3 employees, 4, 5, 6. And then suddenly we have 100 employees. And then the message doesn't get there, the communication doesn't get there, and all these good vibes that we had in the company, we're losing them. And I think that, for example, in our case, one of the
How many employees do you have, Elena, for people who don't know the company?
I started with 3, now 5,000. So
5,000.
Yes, so it was a big growth. But the thing which I think is important is to be able to keep the vibes, even though the company is growing. So to learn how to delegate, how to communicate, how to empower people, how to make people that they really breathe and feel the business.
I think there's a super important dimension outside of generation, which is the stage of development of a leader or the stage of maturity of a professional in how they want to be led. So right now, most Zoomers are early in their careers. So by definition, they're going to be junior, or if they made it to a leader, they're going to be inexperienced. By definition, it's just math. And I think it matters more the fact that they are just inexperienced and that they're relatively recent managers and leaders than the fact that they are Zoomers. I see the same mistakes today than I saw 15 years ago and that you probably saw over 20 years ago in your career as a leader, where inexperienced managers or leaders tend to understand power by something that needs to be enforced, that needs to be dictated.
Yes.
There's probably some insecurity behind that enforcement of power that needs to be figured out. No? There is some humility that needs to be built. I used to be super arrogant when I was a teenager, and it took me a few slaps in the face, through my professional development to understand, okay, I don't know everything. I'm not smarter than everybody else. I'm actually one of the dumbest people in the room, but if I work hard enough, I can make it there. And I think almost everybody goes through this process.
But you see, this needs to be, needs to be communicated, needs to be shared, and especially people need to see how you do it. And many times it's not only enough that you do things in a certain way, but that you share why you are doing this in this certain way. That you can take much more from people just offering them the possibility, the chance to develop by themselves, than to giving orders. But people need to understand what's your concept behind that. Don't you think so?
But I think that also changes. You mentioned your company went from 3 to 5,000 employees. I'm lagging behind. Ours went from 3 as well to 1,000 and a little bit right now. And also the company goes through its own generational change. No? There is the company pre-COVID and post-COVID, totally different businesses. But there is also the company of 3 to 10 people. And then how you communicate as a leader to your employees and what motivates people and what you can allow them to do is totally different than when you're leading a company of 5,000 employees and there are many levels in the organization. There are processes, there are protocols. You have a lot of compliance to follow. You're part of a company. I don't know how many thousands of employees does the group have, but like 500,000 employees or something ridiculous
more or less,
like that.
Yes, that's
okay, so
bad.
It's a big company, part of a ridiculously large company. So how does the leadership and the communication change between a 10-people company and a 5,000 people company, part of a 500,000?
But I think, for example, with the procedures, it is something that we need to understand why they are there, and to understand
why are they there. I'm trying to understand that. I'm at that stage. Why do we have so many processes right now?
But to make business safer.
Business safer.
Yes.
From itself.
To be sure that finally, that the customer, regardless who's going to do what, is going to get the same excellent service because they're going to follow the same process, regardless of the service being done in Barcelona or in Kuala Lumpur, the customer is going to get an excellent service from your side. And these are the process, why they're there. But I think that you also need to be a little bit flexible on that if there is a process that it doesn't work, that it doesn't bring this benefit, maybe we need to reconsider why this process is there, okay?
So you said something super interesting. All the processes ended up being there to protect the business, which assumes there is something to protect, which is obviously the case of a company like yours. But when you're early stage or you're still growing fast, no? For example, in our case, we're not tiny, but we're also relatively small to compare to what we want to be. We don't have that much to protect because all the value is in the future, no? All the growth is in the coming years compared to in the past. So how do you regulate this in terms of leading?
The way of doing things also.
Okay.
Because there is sometimes, I'm sure you face the situation that you have people that they are very good managers, but they tell you, no, I prefer to do the things by myself because I lose a lot of time explaining the others how to do it.
I used to say that when I was younger.
Okay, me too. Okay, but so processes...
Because we thought we were better than everybody else until we realized.
So processes are there to help these people to say, no, look, you need to settle a process so other people can develop the business. So processes also help in this situation, that there is a systematology on how to develop this, how to do this, how to control this, how to control security, how to control quality, how to, whatever. And in the case that you are not here, there are other people that can do this and take care of this as good as you're doing it. And this is why processes are there.
Something we're struggling at the moment with, like as we grow as a company, learning to add enough processes that help you go faster, but not too many that would slow you down.
Yeah, but you need to take care of that. I mean, that sometimes you need to realize, like, maybe this process was done in a situation that now it's not worth to keep it. Okay, that there is a politician, Maragall, who was always saying, whenever you sign a new law, you need to take another one out.
I like that.
Okay?
Ideally, too.
Yeah, so if you put a new law, there is for sure another that you can take.
I don't think many politicians listen to Maragall, yeah? Because I feel like we have more than ever. And another dimension that I was thinking about when we were discussing this backstage is different levels of responsibility inside an organization. I realized that I communicate very differently to a C-level executive or a vice president than a manager or somebody who's an individual contributor and that have like their own responsibility. They're not in charge of a team. Mm-hmm. How do you see what they expect or what they need to hear from a leader in terms of different levels inside the organization?
We need to be cautious of that because I think that we need to communicate as much as we can about the business and to bring all the enthusiasm that we have and all the vibes that we were saying before. But on the other side, when there is a strong danger or we have a huge complaint about the client that is saying like whether you do this or you're going to lose the account or this, I think that a good leader doesn't need to share this with everybody, okay? Because the only thing that you achieve is like fearing people, putting a lot of pressure, and I'm not sure that you are going to have a better result because of this. So if I would have a big complaint and a client with threatening us, I would go to the team and I would say, look, I think we can do this better, how we can improve it, how we can achieve some certain, these SLAs that we are fair to get them. But I wouldn't share with them all the threats that the client gave me.
So you wouldn't share all the pressure that's on your shoulders?
Yes.
With nobody?
Yes, with a high
with
level.
A very senior...
Yes, but you were telling me, you were asking about how to bring down the message. I wouldn't share all this threatening message
because
to the
that's
others.
what you pay usually a lot of money to senior executives, is so you can share some of the pressure
that's right.
with them.
You can share with them.
They get paid a lot usually, but they take a lot of responsibility
but you need to tell
on
them,
their shoulders.
Don't share this with everybody.
Solve it with your team,
solve it,
but don't just push it down.
Yes,
that doesn't solve
anything.
That's right.
Okay, so before we finish, because I think that we are going to finish immediately, is there any input or idea that we need to share with this audience that to remind?
Yeah, I think there are, so leadership is something that we spend a lot of time thinking about because obviously we have an HR software product and a business management product. So we try to help companies in improving their leadership through data, through automation, and through good practices. And obviously, I have a huge leadership challenge, like 1,100 people and growing fast.
It is.
And we are learning as we do. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that. And I think the deepest realization, which is like that simple, is I need to understand very well what are the individual's motivations in life to a very deep level, no matter the age, the seniority, or the department this person is part of. You need to understand what's going on inside that person's head. What do they want out of life? And I realize some people want to be very successful in making money. Some people want to lead a very big team. Some people want to live by themselves in the farm. Some people want to write the best code. Some people want to be selling all day on the phone, but they don't want to deal with people problems. So really understanding, I ask about their childhood, their relationship with their parents, what they do on the weekends, to try to understand the person. And it's a lot of work, so I can only do this with a very small group of people. But I think that's essential. Understanding the human being on the other side of the table is essential.
I fully agree on that. I just would add one thing about plus to understand the fears of this person. So all what this person wants and also the fears, because many times you give a message and it's completely misunderstood because people are hearing the message through their fears.
100%.
And this is, we need to be very, very careful about that. So we need to understand what the motivation are, but also it is very important to understand and to have empathy to understand their fears. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Elena.
And thank you all.
Thank you very much, Helena. Thank you very much, Jordi, as well. We're almost there. We're just coming towards the end of our afternoon here on the Banco Sabadell stage at 4 years from now, but we're not quite there yet. We have one final session. Now, some of the points that we've been making throughout our Gen Z series of conversations on stage will it's about understanding. It's very easy to label quite a broad demographic there. And the points that Jordi and Helena were making there about, yes, you know, Gen Z, whatever, but understanding people, empathizing with them, understanding their fears, and so on, I think are very, very well made. In our final session, we are going to be taking a look at where people are starting to hang out. Now, conversations around the metaverse are certainly nothing new, but we are maybe past a peak of inflated expectations and starting to see some value. And certainly it's where many Gen Z people in its different forms are starting to hang out. So our next conversation is about understanding the metaverse. It's about user engagement in the metaverse. And we welcome back to the stage here somebody who's appeared at 4 years from now before, here to share some thoughts on hanging out in the metaverse and engaging users in the metaverse. Join me in welcoming the co-founder of Union Avatars. It's Kai Philippe.
Thank you. Well, hi everybody. Thank you for staying that long. This is the last talk for today. Just a quick introduction on myself. I'm Kai. I'm the CEO at Union Avatars. Basically what we do is we have a software where we generate through AI 3D avatars coming from two selfie pictures. We work with the developers who are creating either video games, education platforms, training, immersive platforms. So if you want to reach out, happy to talk. Super interesting talk we had before and on the previous talks too about Gen Z. What I'm going to do today is a little bit of an overview on different brands and how they are interacting with the new generations using the metaverse technologies. When we talk about metaverse technologies, we talk about all these new technologies that can go on the intersection of Web3, XR, VR, AR, everything concerned to that. And the state of the art where we are now, or the point where we are now, is on this convergence of all these new technologies, ranging from hardware, from all the new chips that are being born, blockchain, how the industry 4.0 is engaging on the new, let's say, ways of interacting with our target, artificial intelligence that probably you just so many different new ideas here in the conference, and also all these new computational technologies. So when we talk about metaverse, even though the hype is kind of gone now, I think that that's something that is persistent. We're still building it, we're still creating it. And as I was saying, for me, the metaverse is just, let's say, an evolution, no? of the internet. Is what we know as the cyberspace, or this internet where you can interact in a 3D way instead of going 2D, instead of going just scrolling up and down. You have spatial computing, you have more space to move. You can interact with the different objects, you can play with them, and you can engage with them. So when we talk about the opportunities that the metaverse can give us, there is a whole new set of opportunities that we can work with. We can go from the customer service to the training to sales events. There is a lot of different technologies being used for brands, for games, for meetings. So in our specific case, we have been working a little bit with each one of these verticals, and looking how to improve the interaction that the brands and the companies can have, either with new clients, with new users, with new customers, or even with their own workers. Today, what I want to do is just show you some different examples from different industries on how these brands or these companies are trying to reach out to a younger audience, trying to get the feedback from them, and trying to evolve with it. So what I'm going to do is do a little bit of an overview on different projects and different metrics. I think one of the most known experiences or examples that we can find is the Travis Scott show that happened in Fortnite a couple of years ago. This was the first big show that happened in a game or in a virtual platform. And then they got around 2 million live viewers at the same time, in a platform where it's interesting to understand too that people, like the users, are spending more than $80 per user every year on the platform. So that's a really wider range of people that you can reach out. If I'm not wrong, Balenciaga also did some activations there. And I don't know if you're familiar with Fortnite, but we had a lot of kids that wanted to buy new shoes, new garments coming from Balenciaga. And this was by the influence of having Balenciaga in a platform like Fortnite. So Fortnite is a clear example on how to reach out to this new audience. Also in Roblox, Vans did an activation a couple of years ago too. They had more than 100 million users already interacting. This is a little bit different because this Vans world, it have a lot of different small games in it, so people can interact, can play with it, and can play with the brand, and at the same time can also give feedback to the brand. I think that's one of the interesting points of the new generations, is that the brands can get really feedback from their users or from their customers. To talk about a totally different example on how to interact with the new technologies and the new generations too, we have different examples of virtual influencers. These 3 examples are totally created by AI. In fact, one of them, Fit Aitana, is created by a Spanish company. But I think Lil Miquela is maybe one of the most known cases. She has more than 2.5 million followers in Instagram. Nonori is reaching almost 1 million, and Aitana is around 300K. All of them are doing activations with different brands. It can be an advertisement of a new car, for example. It can be an advertisement for different fashion brands. And they did even some video clips with real people. So I think this is another way of, let's say, trying to get to this new generation, trying to interact with them, and getting their feedback. Another type of technology when we talk about metaverse, I think, as I was saying before, no, it's the conversions of different technologies, of Web3, XR, everything related to the internet, but also the hardware. We talk about all the XR experience, ranging from AR to VR experiences or mixed experience. When we talk about extended reality, we talk about different types of extended reality. The virtual reality is when your experience is fully immersive, so the real world doesn't have nothing to do with the virtual world. You just see the virtual world and interact with it. On augmented reality, you can see some virtual elements that are staying on the real world, but maybe you cannot directly interact with them. And with the mixed reality, you are feeling a little bit the real world and the virtual world at the same time. That means, for example, if you have a real table on your side and you have a virtual cup of coffee and you let it drop, it would crash into the table and then fall on the floor. So one clear example for that is Audi. They prepared the release of a new car a while ago, and they created a location-based entertainment game. So that means that you could play with your games in a virtual environment with elements from the new game, but everything was virtual. That was also a way of promoting the car and also a way of visualization for the car. Another idea is what Paul and Beer did, I think last year or 2 years ago, in one of their shops in Madrid. Basically, what they did is a show from an artist called Sen Senra. He's a pretty known artist here in Spain. So everybody had, let's say, the invitation to go to this event, to go to this show at the same time on one specific location. And then through the mobile phone, they could see one song show of this artist. And everything was completely virtual, interacting with the shop. The shop was totally changing, let's say, the scope of it, the outside of it, to do this performance. And then to go quick, sorry, because I only have 2 more minutes, but when we talk about Web3, I think this is one of the clear examples on how the evolution of the brand's interaction with the customers have evolved over the time. When we talk about Web 1, sorry, what we assume is that the brands have only a one-way direction to interact with the consumers. That means they were posting different content, and you as a user or as a customer would receive it. When we talk about Web 2, we talk about this, let's say, interaction on the social networks. So you could get some of the feedback from your users. But when we talk about Web 3, you may really participate your community of consumers, your community of buyers, as a whole. So that means you can actually make them participate. That means you can, for example, do a challenge where the people have to design a new shoes, and then when there is a winner, people can purchase these shoes, and then it will be released in 2 or 3 months, but it goes on demand. So you don't have any extra stock that you cannot sell later on. So that's a new way of selling products. One clear example also is Nike. They purchased one brand called Artifact. Artifact was basically doing 3D fashion at the beginning. And then Nike got interested in them. They bought the brand, and then they started to do a lot of things that were on the, let's say, limits of Web3 and real world, like having shoes that are connected to an NFT to represent the ownership, or that they can track your steps, and you can have the story of your shoes. So another idea is also Starbucks. What they did is that they created their loyalty point system based on blockchain. Is a way of accumulating points, like we know, but in a way that you can really track these points. You can send points to your friends, and you can also have access to a whole community of Starbucks and give them feedback about the products that they do. So thank you for listening until the end. That was quite short this time, but I hope I give a little bit of light on these new technologies and the ways of interacting with the new generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Kai. Terrific. I kind of feel as though I fit right alongside there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's been another busy day. Obviously, AI has been a constant throughout the day, but I think we've also been able to touch on a lot of other areas as well. For example, around regulation, around responsible use. We kicked off this morning with obviously a conversation on social media and how social media in its current form can exist alongside democracy. We've also touched on sustainability this afternoon, and of course on customers towards the end of the afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Just a reminder that tomorrow, 5 o'clock here on stage, on the Banco Sabadell stage, is the 4 Years From Now Awards. Our 5 final finalists will be doing live pitching here on stage in front of our panel of judges, investors, all for the chance of winning a check for €20,000 and all of the accolades, all of the bragging rights, and the trophy that comes with being a 4 Years From Now award winner. Thank you for joining us wherever you're going tonight, wherever you're spending the rest of the week. Thank you for now, and hope to see you again. Adios.